Hello on the Rockers. On this week's episode, it's a British invasion with the writer-lyricist of Everybody's Talking About, Jamie, Tom MacRae, and actor from across the pond. Rumor is he's sleeping with the writer. Dannie Pye is here, and me, your favorite host with the sassy most. Raise a glass and let the drinks begin.
Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death.
I'd like to propose a toast.
This is On the Rocks with Alexander, where I drink with your favorite celebrities as we talk about fashion, entertainment, pop culture, reality TV, and, well, that's about it. So pop a cork, lean back, and raise a glass to On the Rocks.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Oh, isn't that applause? I love the applause. Who knows what's going to happen tonight, but it's got to be a little bit fancy because, you know, we got English folk here. Buttons and bows and pantyhose on the Rocks podcast, a place where we're too glam to give a damn. Okay, just a little movie news. Barbie just got a little queerer. SNL's Kate McKinnon has joined the cast of the Barbie movie that's also starring Margot Robbie as Barbie and Ryan Gosling as Ken. It also stars America Ferrera and Simu Liu. This is the most random cast I've ever heard. Anyway, the film reportedly deals with the fact that Barbie is kicked out of Barbie Land for not being perfect enough. I just want to see if Ryan Gosling's Ken is anatomically correct. You can check out my weekly sassy movie news, my news bites, on Channel Q in 32 states, playing daily. 4 times a day, to be exact. So check your local FM listings to hear more of my fabulous Hollywood tidbits. Like us on Twitter and Instagram at Alexander, or On the Rocks on Air, sorry. And on Facebook, On the Rocks Radio Show. Send me an email, book me for a wedding, funeral, quinceañera, bris. I don't care. I will show up and host. Info at ontherocksradioshow.com. The show is presented by Straw Hut Media. You can watch and or listen to our now almost 300 episodes for free at ontherocksradioshow.com. You can watch us on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, on the Outlet.tv app, Facebook Watch, streaming with pride on SVTV, and we're on Channel 31 on the East Coast. Hello, East Coast. The show is, of course, brought to you by FanDaddies.com, bringing you the sassiest and classiest clacking fans and hats for pride, EDM parties, sassy selfies, and even sci-fi nerds. Head to FanDaddies.com. And, of course, just a word of warning, tonight's shenanigans are being fueled by the vodka tastings of NEFT Vodka. Pure taste, it's damn good vodka. It's even in the name. Vodka, as it should be, can be drank neat or with anything. And I have mixed it with everything from Diet Mountain Dew to nothing. And I never have a hangover. Woohoo! Thank you, NEFT. And it comes in these little cute barrels. Okay. Let's get the show on the road. Please let me welcome my guest co-host for today, Dannie Pye, a formerly trained actor. He hails from the UK, has been seen in PBS's Unforgotten, BBC's A Very English Scandal, appearing in the film and stage versions of Everybody's Talking About Jamie, also on stage in The Seagull, Marquis de Sade, Pride and Prejudice, and Fancy Pants here, Royal Shakespeare Company's As You Like It, just to name a very few. Oh, my Lord, where did I find that picture from? Please welcome Mr. Dannie Pye.
Hello. Thank you.
All right, we're just going to jump right into it. So, an English actor now in L.A. semi-permanently, indefinitely.
Yes.
What's it like to kind of have to start over in a certain way in a different country?
Well, to be honest, Alex, I don't really see how that's any of your business.
He's so polite and so kind.
No, it's hard. It was hard. I mean, I got rejected from Whole Foods to stack shelves because they told me, and I quote, I didn't have the right skill set.
Well, probably you were too cute. People would be like, "Oh my God, we can't, we can't pay attention to our grocery shopping." But I love that you're actually sharing like the reality of what happens.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's reinvention from scratch.
So what keeps you motivated to be like, you know what, stay in this business, keep going to the auditions, keep at it, keep at it?
I mean, it's super like cheesy to say, well, I was born to do this, but you know, I'm in America and you guys like that, so I was born to do this, and I just self-belief.
Now, what first got you inspired to enter the acting? Like, what was your acting bug bite? Was it like doing school plays? What was it?
Well, my mother desperately tried to find me a hobby. I was a bit of a tearaway child.
What does tearaway child mean?
Well, I was just a bit of a cunt. Like,
some things never change.
Yeah, still a cunt now. Just
fancier.
Found a purpose.
Can I borrow that line?
Yeah.
Okay.
I specifically like drinking vodka out of a barrel. Like,
Girl, I've seen you over a barrel. Let me just tell you.
God, was that last week? Yeah.
So finding a hobby, did she put you like in like an acting
everything,
camp or something?
sports, which you can imagine I didn't take to. I'm in a spaghetti tracksuit. Just other things like singing. And I'd always find excuses of why I didn't like it, why there was some reason that I didn't want to go. And then she enrolled me in a youth theatre, and I had to sort of audition to get in. And I auditioned and got in, and I was like, ooh. And then I I was bitten by the acting bug, and it's not let me go.
And you could put all that energy somewhere.
Yes. Can
imagine.
I borrow that from you sometime?
Yes. Now, what kind of auditions have you been going on here in LA? What kind of roles do you want to be playing? Have you ever been asked to like do an American accent?
Yeah, I've done. I've done a couple of. I did a show where I had to do an American accent in the UK actually. But here, no, I've not had to do one with an American accent yet. They were the two auditions I've been sent out on so far. I've only been here like 8 weeks, by the way, just to give you some context. It's not like I've just been sitting on my fanny, but like I have, to be fair.
No, I've seen you work at it.
Waiting for the phone to ring. They were both for British, which I was quite lucky with. But like, I could do an American accent. I'd do anything.
Can I hear your American accent?
Show me the money. Like,
I'm showing you the NEFT vodka, bitch.
all right, okay, just let me have a. Just got to lubricate the vocal cords.
It's for the throat.
What do you have a sentence that you want me to read?
Like,
I mean, this is gonna really put me. Oh God, I don't know, man. I'm just like it's not like I can't. I'm not like a performing monkey. I can't just like turn it on,
That's pretty damn good. That does sound like a conversation I've heard in West Hollywood. Yeah.
Thank you. I did train.
That was very, 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 very good.
Thank you.
And again, there must be that frustration. It's like, okay, I'm in LA. We're still in COVID. Things are difficult. And then it's like you have to knock on the doors again when you have this whole established resume going back home. And then,
and everything's taped here as well.
Yeah.
And I'm really not good on a self-tape. I'm better in the room. You turn up in the room. You do it. If you fuck up, you fuck up. That's it. They might direct you and get you to do it again. Mostly it's just like, thank you. And then you leave. And then you often pull on a push door or something stupid when you're trying to get out. And then they think you're even more retarded. Sending me these crap actors and then they can't open a door. So here everything's on a tape and the tendency is you want to do it 75 times.
Yeah.
And
because you're looking at every little
and
thing.
there's no way to stop it. So I don't like that, and I would much rather, with COVID, I would rather be back in a room, and they meet you as well, and they get you.
It's that chemistry, and as a performer, we get turned on when there's that energy in the room, and there's that kind of immediate, need to perform, and that brings a whole different element.
For sure, and I'm needy. I'm an actor. I need validation.
Yes,
and I can't get that from a self tape.
Yeah,
and a ring light.
And again, when you're paying every little attention, the first recording I ever did, because, I sing musical theater. I've done musical theater at a church. I've done musical theater at a cemetery. I've done it like on a huge stage. But the first time you go into like a recording room and you hear every little scratch, every little, and then you're like, oh, can I take it back? And there's like a whole orchestra. So I'm like, no, you can't take it back. No. Like, do it. But you become your own worst enemy.
Which is, what I've been doing for, the majority of my life.
Now, when you look back at your scope of work and, having worked with like the Royal Shakespeare Company, which, very impressive, especially here in the States, like even we know what that is. What has been one of the best experiences or the biggest challenges that you've grown most as an actor from one of your past shows?
I'd say that just live theatre in general.
Yeah.
Every audience is different. They'll laugh in places where they didn't laugh the night before. They won't laugh at places where they did. Sometimes you'll have to stop because they're so enthralled by the performance. They're laughing, they're cheering, they're throwing things. And sometimes you have to just wait for them to calm down. But every performance is different. And it's live. You can't go again.
Yeah.
You fuck up, you fuck up. The tendency with television, as nice as it is because the paycheck's bigger, you can just go and go and go and go. And you could do a really good take where you were great, but your co-star wasn't great, or something fucked up with the sound, or like someone wasn't stood on a mark, and then
Or the
they're
editor's terrible.
and then they have to go again, and then you do it again, and then you in the edit you watch it, and then you're like, oh, that wasn't. I don't think that was the best take, but there's numerous factors they had to edit around to make it to composite that scene that you see on the television. Sorry, and. Just for me, like, you just learn so much every night when it's live and it's there. And it's a shame that, I mean, I think LA's getting better for theatre, like, for sure. With
Crickets.
slave play and...
No, very good.
Everybody's talking about Jamie.
Well, I mean, you had everybody's talking about Jamie in the center theater group, but I'll tell you, LA in general for theater, you know, in other places there could be a small hole in the wall theater that does amazing work. Not so in LA. It's either the big productions that come in that are great, but the theater scene in LA on the whole is not quite what it should be. Part of that is there's not the support for it, which is surprising because we're in one of the biggest entertainment cities.
Yeah.
But it's not quite there. Well. Maybe we can change that.
Maybe I'm hoping to put on a play.
Oh, well, you know, I can help. I know a few people.
Thank you.
What play would you do?
So it's a modernized Japanese no play, and it's called The Lady Aoi, and it's set in a hospital. It's only 50 minutes, so don't be perturbed. There's no intermission. You just have to buy the wine on the way in. And,
Done.
It's about a man, he's described in the script as a very attractive man, and he's had an affair with a much older woman. Like, it's much older, so she's 60s. And it's set in a hospital where his young wife, lies dying, and it's just the two of them for the whole play. And yeah, it's very creepy, very...
I'm intrigued.
Macabre. And
if you want me to read for it, it's fine.
Totally.
I kind of saw that in your eye. I'm like,
Totally.
you'd probably be pretty good for it. I'll be like,
yeah.
unplug her.
Let's do a two-hander.
Now, here in Hollywood, there's this big boom and this big stress right now on inclusion, representation, and so minority actors are just what's being called for. And so that must be interesting coming from England. And I want to know, like, what the kind of energy in the UK is towards that kind of casting. And now, as a tall, skinny white man, you're in the minority right now in what's being cast. Is that a weird feeling?
Did you just say I was skinny?
Well,
Thank you.
honey, you can fit into Zara.
Oh, yeah.
One of the
that's
second
true.
things he ever told me after meeting him in his entire life to me was, I got a Zara. You have to be like
You
a
can
size
sometimes
negative
have some
zero.
great stuff in Zara. Like, sometimes it's like shit, but then it's like...
I can't even wear a scarf from Zara. They're like, ugh. It's like it's just meant for one shoulder.
Sorry, what was the question? I saw myself on the monitor and was like, oh, hello. Did you
My
ask?
God. Oh, I feel so sorry for Tom. No, but with this big focus on racial diversity and casting, now coming here to LA as a white man, frankly, you're in the minority now.
Do you mean because I'm an immigrant?
No, because you're very white.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully that transcends because I am gay and autistic. So I'm ticking 2 boxes.
But I would say, you know, and this is a whole other conversation, being gay in LA, there's this term, and some people hate the term, and quite frankly, if I was a casting person, I would use the term. It's, you know, passable. You wouldn't walk in a room and be like, oh, God, he's going to be the new, you know, Jack and Will and Grace reboot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do see that you are very passable. And the work that I have seen, you know, from PBS and projects like that, you are very passable.
Oh, I've not played a single nice person. Like, I've played neo-Nazis and thugs and skinheads, and I've not once played a gossipy gay man who has a great time with the girls and sips on rosé, and you know, I'm never. And
Is that a part you would want to play, or do you think it would limit your career?
I mean, at least once.
Yeah.
You know, just for fun.
And I think we're past the point of being typecast like that. You know, I know like actors like Neil Patrick Harris have kind of overcome that. Now he's playing all these different kinds of roles, but back then it's a very different Hollywood.
For sure. The only thing that sort of irks me a bit about the acting industry, I don't know whether it is the same in America, and this might put me on some kind of blacklist in the UK, if anyone listens to it. There are a lot of northern working class actors out there. I'm one of them. Stop casting posh people to do these shoddy northern accents. Like, it's not fair, and just stop.
This is very interesting to me, and we're actually going to talk about it later in the show when we talk about casting of the movie. Everybody's talking about Jamie. because it goes in this conversation of gay playing gay, trans having to play trans, differently abled actors playing differently abled characters, and so forth. So it sounds to me that there's a little bit of elitism happening, and the actual representation is not happening.
I'm totally, like, I understand why the guy in Atypical had to not be an autistic actor, because as someone with that level of autism can't lead that show.
See, and that's the logistics of actually making.
You can't
on a
be
tight
number
budget.
one on
Yeah,
a call
100%,
sheet, like,
100%.
but so they brought in the group in season 2 with the autistic actors, because they can just do that once. There's
Yeah.
no like constant taking. But to lead a show like that, you can't be severely autistic. As much as, you know, we would like to see, you know, the diversity, and like my friend wrote a play that was on at the National, and it had the first ever lead Down syndrome character in it. Like, you know, and, you know, it is changing, but there are certain things that I think that some, you know, minorities can't handle, and the stress of being number one on a call sheet and being the lead, and I think it is very difficult, and not every actor can play every part.
That is very true. Kristen Stewart as Diana. But these other conversations I think we should be having, an honest conversation, is about how we feel without being so worried about being PC or whatever, especially if you're from a certain group. Like, I don't think gay has to play gay all the time. I just don't. Some of our LGBTQ actors are not very good actors, but because they are that letter, we're lauding them as these great actors and they're getting awards, and I'm not necessarily convinced that it's well earned.
Yeah.
I won't name names. I'll just call them later. Okay. We're getting to dicey area here, but this is what On the Rocks is about, so we're going to drink a little bit more vodka. We're going to take a look at the trailer for the film. Everybody's talking about Jamie because our guest of honor, writer, lyricist, and it's a film that took the nation and the globe by storm this summer in the slump of COVID, when we all needed some positivity and we needed some joy and we needed some music, and frankly, a musical that made sense. It wasn't too musical, and it wasn't too, like, you know, gritty. It was very accessible to many different generations, gay, straight, older, younger. And so I was thrilled when I had the opportunity to interview Mr. Tom MacRae for Metrosource. And so right away I watched the film. So let's take a look at the trailer. When we come back, we're going to talk to Mr. Tom MacRae.
This is your last careers lesson. So does anyone have a realistic career plan? Tyson, Denzel, what about you?
YouTubers.
I keep telling you all, you gotta keep things real. Jamie. Jamie New.
Me?
What do you want to be?
A performer.
For a minute there, I had such high hopes for you.
What is wrong with our boy?
You remember when we was little and we used to play dress up? Well, for me, that's a game I don't want to stop playing.
I'm done with this. I wanted a son so badly. I got you.
The cold, empty morning.
I don't think I've got a dad anymore.
You've done nothing wrong, Jamie. You never did.
So, why do you want to be on stage?
I want to be a drag queen because it's all I ever dream of. And when I close my eyes, it's all I can see.
If Jamie wants to come to prom, he comes dressed just like all the other boys.
You are a freak.
They made me feel so ugly. I'm scared.
You can't just be a boy in a dress, Jamie. A boy in a dress is something to be laughed at. A drag queen should be feared. You won't believe the power it gives you.
I don't just want to be one. I have to be one.
Stop waiting for permission to be you.
Do what you want to do. Be who you want to be.
You are the bravest person I know. You're like Beyonce.
No.
Mom, do you ever wish I were just normal?
No. Never.
And you don't even know it.
Your room's so tidy, I don't know how you do it.
I don't have as many dresses as you do.
Number one, that's one of the best trailers I've ever seen because it does capture all of the points of the film, and it's so thrilling, and the film is equally as thrilling. So, without further ado, joining the ranks of Ryan Murphy and Greg Berlanti in elevating the LGBTQ characters and voices, writer Tom MacRae made his U.S. film debut with Everybody's Talking About Jamie. The show itself started as a collaboration between Tom MacRae, who also wrote the screenplay, and musician Dan Gillespie Sells, responsible for the songs, and collaborating on the film's score with Oscar winner Ann Dudley, who was involved with the Full Monty. Tom is entirely self-taught in screenwriting, playwriting, and scripting for television. He was nominated for a BAFTA early in his career for writing the TV movie Off Limits, School's Out. From there, he's worked consistently, notably as a writer on the cult hit TV series Doctor Who. Then he created and wrote Threesome, Comedy Central's UK's first original scripted comedy since that channel was renamed in 2009. Which got him noticed in the U.S. He's also written for the Librarians and has many exciting projects in the works. Some he can talk about, some he can't. Rumor has it, is there a new musical in the works? Maybe it's about a husky Latino podcaster. Please welcome, everybody's talking about Tom MacRae. He's always so dapper. Like, I have to know, like, do you wake up, like, dressed to the nines? Because I've never seen you slumming it.
These are my pajamas.
Yes, well,
I literally
believe
woke
that.
up dressed like this.
I believe that, by the way.
Yeah. I just have to sit very still or else it gets creased. But we have a very loveless marriage, so it's easy to do.
Everybody's talking about Jamie. Took the world by storm over the summer. And the show just made its debut in Los Angeles for the last 2 months. So for us here in the States, it's relatively new. It's a new phenomenon. Yeah. How long have you been working on the show from the very first ping of an idea? How many years has it really been?
Well, in my office in LA, I have the 4 pieces of paper that we sketched out the show on with the date at the top, which was December 2013. So it is coming up for more than 8 years. Yeah. It's kind of in some ways flown by, but in other ways it does feel like a significant chunk of my life. But I'm still not bored of it. I still love the show. I went to see the last show on Sunday. I didn't fall asleep, which is a good review. And we continue to kind of roll out across the world and hopefully be in Australia this year because COVID's. Did you hear about the COVID thing?
No, did that happen?
Did you have it in LA?
What?
It was huge in London. Oh my God, we couldn't stop talking about it. It completely fucked my life for 2 years. But I think now getting on to be on the Amundsen, we've just closed. Sorry if you missed it. But it was absolutely joyous, and the American audiences loved it, and it kind of felt like, we're back. The world is reawakening.
Well, and the demand for this kind of positive entertainment, we have done such a great job, our community and beyond other minority communities, by putting out some really great content during COVID, but a lot of it was so heavy and monumentous that it was a little daunting, and it was a little like, oh God, it was kind of depressing. Really good content, but depressing. This was like this bright this bright flash of light, and it really did affect across generations, across audiences, and even critics. Loved it. And critics are hard to.
Yeah, well, it's kind of Jamie's the kind of character where if you told his story 20 years ago, he would have been persecuted from Act 1 to Act 3, died of AIDS probably about 10 minutes before the end.
That's exactly right.
He would have made a straight girl feel really good about himself because he would have learned how to be true to himself. And that would be his function. He would be someone's best friend, comic relief, and then dead.
Yeah.
And we wanted to take that boy who is real. I mean, like Max, who played him in the film, is kind of a Jamie. In fact, we've just had the first ever schools production of Jamie. It was on in November in the UK in Notre Dame School in Sheffield.
How exciting.
I'm sure we're watching this now, so hello Notre Dame School in Sheffield. And they'd asked if we ever did it for schools, could they do the first one? So we trialled it on them. I defuckified the script, took out some of the sexual references. Not as many as I thought I had when I watched a bunch of 12-year-olds doing it, and did feel a little bit queasy, but it was glorious. Parents there are so proud. It was such a fun night, and it was our little trial school, so it will roll out this year across the world.
You can get rights for it.
For teen groups, yeah.
It's going to be in every high school from here to...
I hope so. That would be wonderful. And that what's so lovely with that is that accessibility means that people come to a story which is quite tough and does have its hard knocks to it, but does have a happy ending, which, because it's kind of a true story, did really happen. But we were having discussions about doing the schools edition when we were shooting the movie, and we had Samuel French, our publishers, come down onto set. And Max, who plays Jamie, when he heard what was going on, said, "This is amazing." At school, I was having to kind of butch up and play Danny Zuko in Greece, even though nearly all those boys who do the musical school projects, they're all the gay kids.
Yep.
They're all having to play like, what's his name in Carousel who knocked his wife about?
Billy Bigelow.
Billy Bigelow and all these kind of big butch boys, and they're not. They're Jamie, really, and now they get to play Jamie and a bunch of other drag queens.
It's funny you mentioned Carousel. We did Carousel in my high school, and that's when I was first kind of feeling, well, I was sleeping with one of my best friends who was also in the musical, but I still didn't put that word gay. And then we were doing Carousel, which is very gay, especially when you're doing a song called Blow High, Blow Low. And it was like, this irony is not lost to me.
I did Carousel at school.
Yeah.
I don't remember that song. I would have been
blow
11.
high, blow low, a wailing we will go. And then it's only men in this whole dance thing, and it's blowing everywhere, left and right.
I tell you, so Samuel French used to go into the rehearsals because, school play, they rehearse for months because they only do like one night a week. So we'd get these rehearsal reports, and one of them said, the 15-year-old boy who plays Hugo, the older drag queen, there's a line that Hugo has backstage where he says, "It's been a long time since I had such a generous daddy," talking about Jamie's dad actually paying for his dress. And the show report said, or the rehearsal report said, the 15-year-old boy playing the older drag queen delivers the line, "It's been a long time since I had such a generous daddy, far too well." And when I went to watch it, it was, the way he did it was, he went, "It's been a long time since I've had such a generous daddy."
I was going to say, daddy means nuts to me. It's like, come on, sugar.
But his parents were there in the audience, literally crying with pride because they said he's come alive through doing the show. And it was wonderful to see the acceptance because the community where it's set is also, Sheffield is where we open the show. And Jamie in Sheffield is like Mickey Mouse in Disneyland.
Yep.
We are the mascot of the city and we are so welcome there. And it's really impacted a lot of people's lives. And so we're just trying to take that like lovely local buzz and put it out across the world so it always feels like it's your local town. So in LA, it's your friends, it's your community. Wherever it goes, it kind of finds a community.
And the younger generation, they're having these conversations. They're talking about binary, non-binary. They're talking about coming out. They're talking about trans issues. So young, and so it's very appropriate for a musical like this to be in it, especially when we're dealing in the U.S., especially in Florida right now. There's a bill that's getting very good traction that not only will out gay kids to their parents, or LGBTQ, it's the whole alphabet, but it also wants teachers not to be able to teach about it or discuss it at all, to the point that you could sue the school if that happens.
Was when I was growing up, it was called Section 28, which was a Thatcherist policy, which was the exact same thing. And in the Jamie movie, in the flashback scene for the new song, which is the big kind of street rally, that was supposed to be a Section 28 protest, and it was a real paper tiger, if you use that expression here, as in it never meant anything. No one was ever prosecuted. It was never even clear what it even meant. But the fear was there, and so teachers became self-censoring out of fear it could be them next. And I'm glad to say that things have moved on so far that it was a Conservative government, which was the right-wing party, that was Thatcher's party, that brought through gay marriage in the UK in the early 2000s. That's how far it's moved on, and it's not moving back. But here in the States, where you do have, each state has its own reality, and it's worrying to see that things can be rolled back or can attempt to be.
It's very scary. It's like we're going back in time, yet Hollywood is progressing. It's a really weird dichotomy. Now we got this question from one of the Jamie fans: is how did you, because you were writing, you did Doctor Who, you did Threesome, you were having your great career writing for TV. How did you get involved with the Jamie story?
Well, Dan, who I wrote the songs with and created the show with, is one of my oldest friends now. And when I first met him, I loved his band because pop star.
Yeah.
And my sitcom was on TV, and he liked the sitcoms, so we became friends. And we just used to kind of drunkenly say, "We'll write a musical." And then one day he rang me up. This is On the Rocks.
But I was saying, some of the best collaborations come from drinking.
Well, but then we actually did it, and that was the difference. We were drinking espresso martinis, and then we decided to go and actually do it and stop just talking about it. That is the trick with doing anything.
That is the key, because everybody talks and it's like, we should do this, and it really is followed through.
But we did, and it all fell together so easily that I still to this day can't believe it really happened. And we met Jonathan Buttrell, the director. And Johnny had seen the documentary which inspired it all, Jamie Campbell's Real Story, which inspired it all. And he was looking for writers. And when he met me and Dan, just through chance, really through a mutual acquaintance, he thought, oh, these are the guys that I've been looking for. And we hadn't done anything then. We'd done a lot in our own worlds, but we hadn't done anything together. And we hadn't written a musical. I'd never written theatre. I'd never written a song before. But, you know, we had this ambition to do it. And he just felt that we were the guys. And so he offered it to us within a few weeks of meeting him. And then kind of the next year we had the first workshop. And it just had this momentum. And we always knew it was a really good idea because it just kind of carried itself in a way that good ideas do. We were never having to force it. And then once it got unveiled to the public, it turned out enough people agreed with us that we're still talking about it all these years later.
And I have to say, it's like in every person's musical. And I saw the movie first, and then I saw the play, and I thought, oh, the play's probably going to be very musical, whereas movies usually pare it down. And it's not such a musical that it's so rote. It's not a paint-by-number musical, and that really does make it accessible for people that might not care for musicals.
It's much more talking than singing. I think it's probably about 70% talking to 30% singing. The film is probably 80 talking to 20 singing. And all those cuts we did. It was our baby to do with as we would, and we took the songs out, we shortened it. We understood that a film audience looks at things differently from a stage audience, and a song will overstay its welcome. Stephen Sondheim wrote once about how you said in a film where you have a close-up, you can cut an entire song and replace it with a close-up, which doesn't exist in the stage. And we did that. If I Met Myself Again was cut from the film. We filmed the whole thing, choreography, night shoots, all of it.
Oh, interesting.
But the look on Sarah Lancashire's face as she walked down the street getting ready to sing the song sold the whole story. And we're like, what? It was just 3 minutes of her repeating what we already know. So we were very ruthless about stuff like that. But then also I wanted to have more dialogue. I feel it's just a way to it just makes it feel less stagey. And it makes it feel more contemporary, and the kids who are teenagers feel like they're teenagers. Whereas most musicals probably are more like 30% talking to 70% singing or sung through.
Right.
And some of those are great, but I wouldn't know how to do that.
Or it's also the musical, like very old-fashioned Rodgers and Hammerstein, where there's nothing wrong with that, but it is very kind of dated, where it's like, talk, 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 and then the orchestra plays, and it's like, now we're going into a song.
And they'd always have the fantasy ballet in Act 1.
Always.
And that was a convention. I don't know when it stopped, but it was and no one questioned this. Someone at some point, I reckon in the 70s, went, why do we do the fantasy ballet in Act 1?
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know why. And they'd stop doing it, but they always used to just stop the show, and they'd have like proper ballerinas who didn't have anything else to do apart from come out and do the fantasy ballet, and then the show would carry on. It was almost like the halftime, like the Super Bowl thing.
Do you know when that started to change was when movies like Singing in the Rain put them in the film, and like you said, film audiences don't have that kind of patience. And so if you remember Singing in the Rain, which is one of my favorite films, goes into that whole weird montage with Sid Charisse, and it has nothing to do with the rest of the film, and that's when you're kind of like, oh. And so that kind of started like, okay, we don't need it.
Just looping back to something that you said before, Tom.
Yes, Danny.
I love this. I have a little secret to share in a little bit.
When you were saying, we had to be ruthless and cut things, how important is that, do you think, to like new writers or writers who are starting out on the ladder and who are, I think people can get quite precious about their projects.
Yeah, kill your babies. That's how you make it work.
Is it important to be?
You have to be a very strict editor. I got to the point where I was too strict, and I'd have, like Johnny would say, you've cut that scene that I like. I was like, cut it. But you've got to. It's just a blueprint. The finished thing is what counts, and the finished thing will only be good if the blueprint is right, and it's not supposed to exist for its own sake.
And I think there's certain new writers out there that are like, I want to be a writer, I want to be a Quentin Tarantino, I want to do this. And they have such an ego that they're not paying attention to the actual story that they're writing, as that it's a cohesive
my best advice would be particularly for theatre writers, and I've only written one theatre thing, but it did do well, so I
did okay.
I take some amount of, but don't write speeches, and I'm going to look right down the lens and say, you're writing a speech, stop it until you really know what you're doing. Leave speeches alone. Speeches kill drama. People don't talk. Okay, I'm giving a speech now, but I'm a professional. I'm allowed to. Normally, people don't talk in speeches. Give us maybe one. I have a 2-speech rule. Don't interrupt my monologue. I have a 2-speech maximum rule in any project, and no more than 2. And stick to that, and you'll do something that people want to watch.
Okay, well, let's talk about this, because you, in many interviews, you've said that you don't. You did at the beginning. You put a lot of yourself, a lot of your own stories into the writing. And everybody's talking about Jamie, you didn't really do a lot from your own life. say for one part, which is not a speech, but it's a very strong statement, and I could see an actress using it as a monologue. Can you share a little bit about that?
No, it is the one speech.
Yeah.
Is Pretty's takedown of Dean. Yeah. So I maybe one day I'll write something about my own life, but I don't. And my family relationship is nothing like Jamie's. My dad is the biggest Jamie fan in the world, really. But for Pretty, where she takes down the bully, I called him Dean because there was a couple of deans at my school who were not the nicest. And
probably called Dean too.
They were both called Dean. And I thought it would be nice for her to say what I wish I'd said. And I was never smart enough or funny enough or brave enough to be Pretty. But in that moment, yes, that is me. And it's a rare moment of just putting myself into something, which I don't normally do. And I've always said to the actresses playing, that's just me, that bit. And the only other time I've really done it was in Doctor Who, when I wrote a speech for Karen Gillan when she was playing Amy Pond about why she found her husband beautiful, and how when you meet someone, you maybe think they're not that beautiful, but when you get to know them, their face becomes them and they turn into this wonderful thing. And other people who are gorgeous, when you get to talk to them, can become very plain and dull. And I just kind of noticed this, being out and about and being single. And I wrote this speech, and I cut the scene, and the producer said, you have to put that speech somewhere else. And I was like, oh, really? Because normally cut speeches.
Yeah.
And I put it somewhere else, and Karen delivered it beautifully. And I know it's been done at a few weddings, because I've had people contact me on social media and say, can we read this at our wedding? And I say no, but I think they do it anyway. I was like, no, I'm going to come to your wedding, and I'm going to with a collection box.
Is it open bar?
I want my 50 quid. No, 50 pounds. No, of course they say yes, and it's very flattering. Although why you'd want to do your wedding speech, a speech about how
ugly your
I
partner
didn't think you were hot when I met you, but now I've got to know you. You're all right. But yeah, so it's sometimes just a little bit of yourself is good, and for, that's for me. For some writers, maybe it's all about them. And Maya Angelou, fantastic writer, and she literally just told her story, but in a beautiful way. So it's there's no hard and fast rules. But for me, I like to keep a distance. I don't have characters that are secretly me in scripts, but maybe one day.
Well, it's very interesting. Like Christopher Guest, who's one of my favorite filmmakers and writers, he wrote Waiting for Guffman, and of course he played Corky in it. Big cult film. The first version that he kind of edited together, he cut himself out entirely out of the film. And it's the same because he was like, oh, it's about them. It's like, no, it's an important part of the full story.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And, to talk a little bit about your background, you kind of didn't have any formal training whatsoever.
No, nothing.
And so this kind of intuition to care more about the overall story rather than ego, that's a natural ability, I would say.
Well, maybe it's just honed from mistakes. I don't know. I've been doing it a long time now. So every job is an education. You never stop learning. And I've always been surrounded by teachers, older, younger, more experienced, less experienced. There's so much to learn from people. So education isn't something that finishes when you leave school with a piece of paper.
100%.
And it doesn't mean, maybe the best way to get it is to do that, or maybe it's to not. And I just wanted to just do it. I didn't want to be taught it. I wanted to discover it. And what my early instincts were, I think, was just try and be funny. That's what I tried to do, and I kind of honed that. But maybe the kind of the sort of leaving the ego behind probably was something I maybe learned more than was an instinct. But it feels instinctive now.
Now, you are a formally trained actor.
Yes.
So what is your school of? We know some like rough like James Dean, talking about Deans. Like his kind of approach to acting was just very guerrilla style. You've kind of experienced a little like both sides. You've worked with actors that have no training,
yes.
But being part of Royal Shakespeare Company, I mean, you can't really walk in with no training.
I went to a school that was very method, so it was very much like you live, sleep.
I got kicked out of many schools that are very method.
I'm not a fan either, to be honest. It was the one thing. This is, I think, was the big thing that I took from my training. Like the rest of it, I like to fag in. Sorry. A cigarette. I like to cigarette.
I've seen you do both.
I like to cigarette in the morning with my brew, which is a cup of tea. And I.
Why don't you guys drink coffee? It's so good.
I coffee after lunch.
I was 19.
Tea at breakfast.
I didn't like coffee at 19. And I'd have my fag and a brew, and
that's the name of a show, by the way.
Yeah.
Fag and a brew. It's a one-man show,
and
starring Dannie Pye.
They'd be like, oh no, you can't do that if you're like doing an acting class first thing in the morning and you're playing Macbeth. You have to come to school as Macbeth. And I'd be like, fuck you. So the thing was, the one thing that I took from that, the whole method training, The rest of it was bollocks. The one bit that I found very interesting, which I still carry with me, is did my character walk or run to get into this scene? How did they enter? Did they walk or did they run here?
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
think you.
All I took.
I probably have like 5 or 6 useful things like that I would tell you, new writers. Just things I picked up that would take half an hour to explain. And there's a bunch of good stuff you would get from a drama school. But for some people, you could just do a kind of checklist of the greatest hits bits of advice.
Yeah. Well, and method works for certain people. Like I said, it didn't work for me at all. I don't like structure. But also, when I studied that, it also helped me to do, like, when you're in a show and you do 8 shows a week and you have to be regimented and you have to stick to a certain structure. But when they were doing Saving Private Ryan with Tom Hanks and Matt Damon, they put him through like 4 weeks of boot camp training, and they almost Matt Damon was passing out because he was so starved and all this. And they were doing an interview with Jack Lemmon, which, Jack Lemmon is, a great actor. And they asked him, what do you think about this kind of method and all this? He's like, why didn't they just act?
Yeah.
And like, that's what he said.
It is. It's a tap. And I don't know, maybe I'm full of unpopular opinions this evening, but like you should just be able
but it's
to
whatever
turn,
works
you should
for
just be able to turn it on and off. Like you should be able to go home and be just you.
But some actors can't do that, so I could see where they would have to do it.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard amazing stories about a very famous British actor who I won't name, but the ritual he would have to go to.
I was just gonna say that.
It wasn't. But to
my left foot is tingling.
The character that he'd play kind of consumed him so much that he actually was taught this speech that he would have to look in the mirror, and the character had an accent, and he would say, "My name is blah blah blah, and I live at this house, and my wife is called blah blah," and gradually he'd turn back into himself. And also that his character famously wore a little moustache, which was a glued-on fake. And so when he did ADR, which is when you go into a sound booth and record extra dialogue that's not there on the day, he'd just stick a little bit of tape on his lips so it felt like the glue where the moustache would go on. So that's a good trick, because that's just a trigger. And I say something I always do when I'm writing is I pick a piece of music that I'm going to write maybe the scene to or the whole script to, or like an album. Often film music, because it without the lyrics it can be distracting if there's words. And when I go back to write the scene, I will put the same piece of music on, and then it's like a Pavlovian response. I'm straight into that mood again. So African Rundown, which is the opening track of Casino Royale, and it's about 14 minutes long. Any action scenes I do is always African Rundown.
The James Bond film?
Yeah, the Daniel Craig one. And then anything that's really sad is A Lot of Life Behind Us, which is a Murray Gold track from Doctor Who. That I listen to that, and that's my, if someone's going to die but in a beautiful way, that's the thing I listen to. And I have all these go-to tracks, and it's a really good, like with the sticky lip.
Yeah.
It just, as soon as I hear it, I go, oh, I know what I'm doing, because it triggers all those memories of all the times that I did it before.
That is very interesting.
That's a good tip, actually. I should do my good tips for.
I don't know if you did this as an actor. I would always do a soundtrack for every show. So in getting ready, like the half hour before, when you're doing your mouth exercise, you're doing your stretches, I would always have this like soundtrack just to put me in the mood. It was always the same stuff. But when I write an important article, like when I wrote the article about you, I was
the most important of your career.
The most important, and I think your name was misspelled in the first sentence. But I always listen to Star Trek music. I listen to Spotify, Star Trek, whatever, because it's energetic and it's majestic. And it's just a part of my life, and it gets your heart going in a certain way. Music is so important. That's why when we're questioning terrorists, they'll play like heavy metal music.
It was Barry Manilow at the bridge protests in Canada, wasn't it? Which is like, poor old Barry. His songs are great. I would have stayed on the bridge just to have heard.
He's Jesus in the
U.S. Time. Yeah, I love it.
I don't get it.
I tell you, when we first started doing Jamie was when Smash was on TV. And I've been told by people who worked on Broadway it wasn't necessarily the most realistic depiction of how a musical's made. I don't know. I've not done a Broadway show. But it was a show about people doing it. And so for me,
now they're doing a Broadway version of Smash.
Oh, well, everything eats itself.
Yeah.
And I was like, no,
I'm going to copy that one down too.
And I watched it because it was like just watching people succeed at the thing I was trying to do was so inspiring. So that song, Let Me Be Your Star, became a real track that when I started to feel like, oh, this isn't going to work, I'd put that on. And so when we did the press night, now bear in mind, I never worked in theatre in my life, and we had a West End press night with all the celebs and the red carpet and all that champagne at the interval and all that shit.
I saw you with Angela Lloyd Webber.
Yeah, it was like everyone was there.
He couldn't even like put on a jacket? I think we have a picture, by the way, and it's like, damn, girl.
But walking to the stage door from the Tube, so I went on the Tube because I'm a Londoner.
Yep.
And
I did too.
And I knew I was going to listen to Let Me Be Your Star as I walked in, and I knew exactly where to start the track, so that as I walk through the stage door at the back, it would just be the big final note. And I walk down the street listening to it, being like, I am in the musical of my own life now. This song that kind of kept me going through the writing process, and now it took me and swept in. And it was a night of feeling like you're in a movie. Better than being in a movie, because actually making movies has loads of shit involved. This was just glorious.
But this is the kind of artistic stuff that we have, and that's part of our lives. And I know you were your parents were art teachers, or art was a very big part of your childhood.
Yeah.
And we just naturally think about these kind of things, such as making a soundtrack, as ridiculous as like the
We
moment and everything.
We just all kind of wish that life was like a musical, right?
Well, and so we see Jamie, we see the musical through Jamie's eyes, especially that beginning scene is just so beautifully, and it sets the tone for everything. It's like, we all did that in school. We all daydreamed, and we all were the star in our own musical. So this question is actually for me. Is it odd career-wise to still be so entrenched with the project? Jamie's been in West End, it's been touring, then it was a film, now it's in the U.S., career-wise, do you always feel like drawn back? It's like, okay, well, yes, but I need to move on to the next thing, because, you know, you're at the openings and then you're here for the run. You're kind of seeing rehearsals. And we talk now, it's like almost a decade.
Yeah, it's not...
It never gets tiring?
Well, it only takes really a bit of my time. You know, rehearsals was a week. And I've seen the show like twice.
It's also the press tour, though, and it's talking about stuff that you've talked about for now 10 years.
It's true. Probably most of the questions I'm going to be asked about it, I have been asked.
Yeah.
So sorry to.
No,
it's trying
true.
to find kind of interesting ways to reply to it without just making stuff up.
Yeah.
Also, if I'm doing it with Dan and Johnny, because they are my best friends, we do have a good laugh doing it. It's like being, the boy band, the aging boy band on tour.
Well, Dan is hilarious.
Yeah.
We went to the Abbey.
You did?
Yes.
And
so I'm going to say about that.
So we have a good laugh, and that keeps it fresh. But we've all been doing a ton of other stuff in between, and if it hadn't have been, again, I was telling you about this thing called COVID, which fucked my life for 2 years. I don't know if it affected anyone else, but it was a nightmare. Then lots of new things would have happened by now already, but we're now... Yeah, there's not a kind of like Jamie takes over my life and I don't do anything else period. That's never happened. Even when we were doing the original show, Dan did 2 albums and I wrote 2 TV shows just while we were putting on the original production for 2 weeks in Sheffield, long before it became a thing anyone had ever heard of. So we were always doing a ton of other stuff, which is kind of what keeps it fresh. We go away and every now and again we get to come back together, and it's always really fun because we've been doing other things, and it's always like it's like a little reunion.
Yeah.
And we love it. I had them back round to our house, sit by the pool last week for the day, and we hadn't spent just time the 3 of us together for ages without talking, without doing press or
without
something.
Business or something like that. There could have been no way that you knew that Jamie was going to be such a hit. Even as an investor, like, Hamilton's been a hit. If somebody said, hey, do you want to invest $20 into Hamilton? I'm like, a rapping? No. Jamie, as sweet as it is, I would not have envisioned it was such a big hit with outside the LGBTQ.
That surprised me, the extent to which... I mean, I'd always hoped that would happen.
Right.
Because I knew that we could assume, not unreasonably, that we would have an automatic appeal to a certain community. And what I wanted was something that spoke beyond that, and not just a really lovely kind of echo chamber. And my nan, who's my mum's mum, who raised me with my mum and my dad, was my favourite person in the world, and she loved musicals, and she was a dead, straightforward working class lady who thought Nat King Cole was absolutely brilliant and Sound of Music was the best thing ever. And Ella Fitzgerald, God, my nan really liked black music, actually, thinking about it, but she loved all that stuff, and I get all my love of that from her. And when I wrote Jamie, I thought, I want this to be a show that my nan would want to go and watch. Mm-hmm. It was a tall order because she was long dead by this point, but it was that thing of if I could get it for her, because my nan would have gone, boy wants to wear it's a bit weird. Oh, but that Jamie, I love him. Oh, Margaret, his mum, I love him. And that would have been her way in. So I tried to make it work for her and not exclude the community that really it speaks to very directly. And then somehow that ended up speaking to so many people. And I remember watching it in London and watching the audience and seeing couples, gay and straight and old and young, and grandparents being grandchildren. And initially we were so surprised, but then it became... Oh, that's just what it is. I don't...
At the Amundsen Theatre, that's what was happening.
Yeah.
There was every type of audience person there that was crying and holding hands and moved by this.
That's my favourite thing about it, because you don't change anyone's minds or open their minds by just talking to the same group. And we had, when we started doing the press for it... I remember
or being so angry about your side, too.
Anger is a useful kind of fuel in the fire, but in itself it's off-putting. You can't... 100%. If you want to change stuff... Anger can power what you do, but it can't be the only thing that you then generate. And when we started doing press in the UK, I remember the publicist saying to me, are there any magazines or newspapers you won't talk to, like the Daily Mail, which is very right-wing? I was like, no, I want to talk to them the most. And actually, they really, really supported Jamie, as has the Daily Express, which is another right-wing paper, which my nan used to read, so I have a residual affection for. But I was like, no, I want those people more, because I know the Guardian, which is the left-wing paper, will be on our side. I'm much more interested in getting a Daily Mail reader to come along and go, oh, I don't find it weird that a boy wants to wear makeup. I mean, I used to find that terribly weird growing up in a village, not even a small town. I remember seeing a drag queen for the first time when I moved to London, walking through Soho and seeing a drag queen, and I was like, that lady's very tall. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know where to look. I was so kind of scandalized by it. And now now it's, oh my God, my life is so full of drag queens that I find it weird to see a man actually wearing trousers. But that was a process to get there. So I understand what it is to be scared of something. And for me, I was like, oh, that's scary, that's cool. Whereas some people, it's like, oh, that's scary, that's bad. And you just have to go embrace the scary, but look for the cool side. Just investigate, be curious. And I hope that the accessibility of Jamie means that people who've loved that may go and see things a bit differently, might see more stuff, or just look at people differently in the world, not in a preachy, patronising way. I don't think people are stupid. You
it
just
never
wanna,
once preached. And also, I think
it's really hard to do that and still have a message.
And I think people might see themselves in Jamie's father's character as well, saying things that they don't realize how hurtful, not being there when they should be, thinking it doesn't really have that kind of effect.
It's that one word. All he says is disgusting.
Yeah.
And that haunts Jamie and motivates everything he does, and everything bad that happens to him, which is self-inflicted, is because of that. And the power of what a parent says. And we're all fallible. We all make mistakes. We all do things we shouldn't in front of people who are impressionable. But I hope that Margaret Campbell, who is the inspiration for Margaret New, is a real woman who is as wonderful as Margaret New is on stage. And she just loves Jamie, and it's very simple. She loves her son, he comes first. No matter what he'd chosen to do. If he
Isn't that what a parent's job is?
I would have thought
Yeah,
that was
so.
pretty basically what it was, yeah. But it's not always that simple, and Margaret is so clear about what matters, and she's the most inspirational person. All the wonderful moments in the show really do start and end with her.
Can you share, and I discovered this through our Metrosource interview, when you actually got to meet her, the script was already done.
Yeah.
The show was about to go on. It was like the next day was like opening night or
it was
previews.
It was the day before the opening night. Yeah, so we'd met Jamie once. He came to Dan's studio in East London, which is a beautiful studio, and with big grand piano and a mixing desk and a sound booth and all this stuff and a kitchen. And he walked in a bit surprised because he thought he'd heard there was a musical happening, but he thought it was going to be kind of like two guys at a piano in a pub. So he walked into Dan's studio and first of all was like, oh, this is a bit more organised. And we played him the songs, and they were all demoed up, like really nicely demoed. And I talked him through the story, and when it got to He's My Boy, which is the big song written about him and his mum, bearing in mind he'd never heard it before, all the sentiment and emotion in it, and I was just like, just ready yourself. And he just broke down in tears, as we all did. And so we'd had a contact with him, but we didn't meet Margaret until the day before it opened. And I remember her talking about Jamie, and we were saying, how was it, what the point at which you realised that you wanted to do this? And she went, well, what is normal anyway? Which is a line from the show. And Johnny and I sort of looked at each other, and then she said something else, which was a direct quote of a line from the show. And Johnny and I looked at each other, and then she said a third thing. And as we left, Johnny said, you're going to think we went home and rewrote the script tonight. But actually, and then Margaret said to me after she saw it, because the scene at the school where they go in, it doesn't happen in the documentary because they didn't have permission to film in the school. So I just made it up. And she said, that's literally what, almost word for word, what happened. She said, how were you in my head? In a nice way. And I was like, I don't know. We just have this thing. And then one of the most amazing things for me was having had the success in Sheffield that we went to go to the West End. We then were re-rehearsing, and the Campbells came in for the first read-through and sing-through. And by this point, they kind of knew the show a bit. And Josie, who was the original Margaret, she sang If I Met Myself Again, which is all about the mistakes she's made with men, but how ultimately, if she hadn't made those mistakes, she wouldn't have Jamie, so it was all worth it. And as Josie was singing, and I was sitting kind of like here, and Josie was there, and I looked over, and Margaret was in the kind of the audience bit, and she was just mouthing along to the song, and I was like, oh my God, she knows the words. Margaret Campbell knows the words that I wrote for Margaret New's song. And I thought, I can picture her sitting at home listening to the soundtrack, these songs we wrote for her, and she's learnt them and now she's singing them. And it was this moment of going, God, everything eats itself, right, as I said before. And this room going, reality and theatre, it's all just kind of blurred together. And it continues to. I think that's part of the energy of the show.
That kind of gives me the chills. And, you know, we're talking about, like, your grandma and, like, female energy. The next question I have is a very emotional part of the show is the song He's My Boy.
Yes.
There wasn't a dry eye in the house. And again, the theater crowd being mixed. It wasn't just like, oh, you know, it's an LGBTQ positive show, so that's the audience. It was not that at all. It was at Center Theater Group, and we have the Amundsen patrons, which can be a little old and crusty, but...
I won't hear a word against them. They've been
they've amazing. But I'm saying that, like, that's
I mean,
because
if you can get them, then you've got everyone. It's a mother and son story. It's not that there's nothing queer about that. It's essential. It's eternal. It's the
and a
heart
kid
of
who's
being
acting unruly, but you're still there because that's what your job as a parent. He's My Boy, about a mother's love. And I know, like, your mom passed away, and your grandma was a big part of your life.
Yeah.
I was raised by my mom and grandma only. That's it. And I started to volunteer with the West Hollywood Cheerleaders, and they would go into hospice for people dying of AIDS and HIV. But it was, you would dress up in drag, be it horrible drag. And so we were at Palm Springs Pride for the first time, and I looked, because my mom was, like, said to my grandma, he's volunteering time, and so, you know, let's go to, you know, Palm Springs where she used to live. And so I was in the Pride, and I looked, and there was my grandma, and she's like, hadn't really discussed drag or anything, and it was so natural to her that I was doing something good and having such enjoyment. So she's like, okay, well then you're going to need her jewelry and her Spanish like veils, and that was the kind of relationship. And so this really, really speaks to me and your journey as well.
Just to throw in something quickly, my grandma also came to watch me in Manchester Gay Pride on a float dancing.
She did, didn't she?
She did, and she was 80. So my grandma, when I first told her I was gay, she thought it was a phase. She legit thought it was a phase, and I was dating.
Because you're very passable.
Yeah.
No, it is a phase.
It's a great phase, by the way.
We're absolutely in the middle of
it. I'm still traveling through.
Just hasn't met the right girl.
You have a certificate for your face.
I was dating a guy called Jack. Hi, Jack, if you're listening. And I was like, oh.
He's probably really pissed by now. I was like, what's all happening?
And I remember calling my grandma homophobic one day.
Why?
Because she was being quite homophobic. And
what was she doing though?
Just being like really dismissive of me, and I was trying to like be true, and like my grandma was my biggest fan, and my grandma died like 2 years ago, and I love my grandma, and like I mean it's it's life.
It's life, but my grandma died 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Every day I think about my
fucking
grandma.
Fucking sucks. And I remember being like, oh, you're a homophobe, and I got out of the car, slammed the door, limp wrist, and
but then to prove that she wasn't, what did she do?
She knitted Jack a scarf and said, I want you to give this to your boyfriend.
Isn't that such a great grandma apology?
She knitted him a scarf.
Yeah. That's...
Oh, Joan. No.
So this is this female energy. So
Yes.
the part of this question is, and I got this from another writer as well, and knowing you kind of brought kind of your grandma's decor into your own personal space at one point. Can you talk about what you've learned from the women in your life, number one? Number two, as a writer, how are you able to translate that where the women characters, and everybody's talking about Jamie, especially from the stage show, are so powerful, from the teacher to Pretty to the mom's best friend. And you write these characters so well that I believe these women, and it comes from such a sincere place. As a male, gay or it doesn't even matter, but as a male writing for a woman, like how you were able to kind of do that, and also talk about what you've learned from the women in your life.
And sorry, just to piggyback on that, because I had
and that's a big question, by the way.
A really great question that I was going to ask in a similar tone. And I don't know if I have ever said this to you before, but you are like an everyman, and it's so.
I was gonna say, what everyman is in a Willy Wonka tuxedo.
It says a lot about every man that Danny knows.
It's so. I mean, I really do admire this about you, is that you're not a 15-year-old Muslim, like hijab-wearing teenager. You're not a single mother from Sheffield in her kitchen. And going back to what Alex said is that you really do capture these people so perfectly, and you're none of these people, but yet you seem to be all of these people. And I am floored by just how
thank you, darling.
How you capture how you capture every single character so completely.
I think it's probably a mix of. I'm an only child. Well, I said I've got a very lovely half brother, but he's a lot older than me.
Very much
I was
older,
raised just me and my mum, my dad, my nan.
In fact, some of the articles say that you are an only child. I'm like, no, there's somebody else out there.
Sorry, Joe. But I had the experience of growing up like that, which means there's a lot of imagination time, a lot of let's pretend in your head. So I was used to inventing these worlds, and it would be, Luke and Leia and Han, or He-Man and Skeletor, and then as you get old, you become interested in just the lady next door and the woman in the post office and the guy that cuts your hair and all the things that, you just pick up stuff. So I have a kind of let's pretend propensity. Haven't used that word for a while. Nice to
love that word, by the way. I put it in my
sorry,
articles
what does that mean?
A leaning towards, and I love doing Daleks and Cybermen and Doctor Who and all that stuff. But there is also an ordinary world of fascinating extraordinariness, which is there's another thing you can use, which is
no, that's another great.
I'm literally full of this stuff, and so there's that.
Danny told me you are full of it. Yes.
Yeah, and then
it's true, I did.
You just make it up. I mean, it sounds really boring to say, but it's like if you say to a professional soccer player, how did you kick the ball into the net? Is that the thing? And they train and they practice, but in the end of the day, they just kick it, right? In that moment, you just kick it. And I guess it's practice, and it's that doing your 10,000 hours. But I have a kind of thing in my head where I can just think, okay, this is who she is or he is, and that's where they are. I remember years ago watching a friend of mine, an actor called Russell Tovey, talking about a character.
We love Russell, of course. He was in Looking.
Yeah, over here, and he was talking about a character played called George in Being Human. Who it was a flat share, a house share comedy about a werewolf, a vampire, and a ghost who lived together. And Russell played the werewolf called George, and George was very sort of like geeky, but then became the werewolf. And I remember watching him it was like a BAFTA panel with him talking about his craft, and Russell, completely untrained, was kind of like, I don't know what to say. And they said, well, how do you get
He's said a few things in his career.
So this guy asked this very long, intelligent question about how to get into character, and the question was about 5 minutes long. And I remember Russell's answer was, he went, well, I think George is kind of uptight. So when I do him, I can't do that. And that was his answer. And for him, that was true. And for me, it's true. When I think of Pretty or Margaret or Ray, I just do that, but in my head. And then I listen to what I think they'd say. And I guess because I'm not from a posh background, I've met those kids. I've got on the bus. I've done lots of public transport. I've heard kids talking. I've seen mums, and who single mums just doing their thing and paying attention. And also maybe because I'm gay, I don't want to fuck any of them. So I see them as people. And maybe that seems so.
You listen a little bit more.
If you watch dramas even from like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and see how women are represented when it's written by men, which most things were, and maybe still most things are, they just sometimes forget that women are people too. And that seems so obvious.
Because Hollywood has always used them as functional parts to...
Yeah. Like, I don't care if she's got great tits or not. So if you take that away, then you're much more interested, like, why am I watching Marilyn Monroe in this film? I don't want to fuck her. I think she's fucking fabulous, but I don't want to fuck her. Why am I not watching, pick a random pretty actress who's not very good in another film? Because I don't want to fuck her. So if you take that away, like, if you're kind of putting sex into it, then you can easily reduce her to that. And because I'm not, I think it does give you an opportunity to kind of just see what's within, and just not being judgy or snobby. And also, one of the reasons why I particularly don't write about me now is that I'm a writer. I live in Hollywood. I've been very well paid for what I've done. I don't live in the real world anymore. Why would I write about me? That's not interesting.
A very honest statement.
And I hate movies about movies. I mean, okay, Singing in the Rain, we'll give that an exception. It was the first ever movie about a movie, wasn't it? Well, the stage play it's based on, well, there's one scene in the stage, it's a terrible stage play, but there's one scene which is where they do the bit where the silent movie star is having to mime and the curtain comes down, you see what it really is. And that one scene became Singing in the Rain. But it was the first play to ever be about films, ever. And Once in a Lifetime, that's what it's called. And it's awful. But it's got a great staircase in the production that I saw. And I remember the staircase, and that's what I remember, if that's a review. But I don't want to do too much stuff that's self-reflective. I don't want to watch, in the most part, writers writing about writers. It just makes me go, really? You couldn't... I bet you've got a maid. Did you not take the time to look at what she's doing and wonder what her life is? You know?
But this is kind of this like naturally selfless energy you have, is that you care really more about the art and the project you're working on rather than yourself.
I care about the audience. If I was an artist, which I'm not, I used to say I was a low artist, and then our West End producer said I should stop saying it, but I like saying I do low art. I do accessible low art. If I was an artist does what they want to do, and the audience finds them or they don't. It's up to them. For me, I think all the time about the audience. What does the audience want to see? And the biggest audience is the most ordinary people, who are the most fascinating people.
But you're talking about the audience, not like how loud are they going to clap for us? And I'm sure you've worked with plenty of actors that are the opposite. It's like they're caring about the audience, but they're caring about the audience, how much they're going to clap for them and give into their performance, yes?
Yes.
And I hope that's how they'll express their enjoyment, but I want them to have a good time. And particularly doing theatre. So we have I can only describe her as fearless. Nika Burns, our producer in the West End, absolutely fearless woman. She's fantastic. And she said, we're going to have a bunch of £20 seats every show, a big lot of them, because we don't want to lose our Jamie fans.
Every show do this. We want the younger generation to be inspired by the arts, which they need to be inspired by the arts, because the sports programs are not doing it, right? No. We know that music, dance, even stage managing a show helps the youth express and deal with issues. So,
well, going to the theatre is an expensive business. If you want to take a family of four, you've got the train to London. You've got
even
hotels.
Hamilton that everybody's supposed to see.
Yeah. It's £200 a
ticket.
$300 a ticket. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many scrappy young immigrant kids, like myself, in this great nation of yours, can afford to spend $200-300 on a theatre ticket, plus the meal, plus the hotel, plus the train or the plane to get there. And if someone's going to do that and they're going to give you their money, they could have spent that on so many things, but they're going to spend it on your show, which is not a necessity, then you have a duty to give them an incredibly good night out. That's how I see it. But I've only done commercial theatre. I've done one show. I'm talking like I'm an expert. I've done one show. And I might want to do my weird, mad play that 50 people see and everyone raves about in 10 years' time. And I'll embrace it for what it is.
A two-person show. Yeah.
Well, he's got his long-dead Japanese writers already done
fascinating.
that for him.
No, sorry, it's a modern-day translation.
Oh, a modern-day, sorry.
But he's been dead for quite some time now as well, so the rights are free.
But you should... You want to think about what someone's day was that you're the antidote to. And I'm really lucky, and this is again why I don't write about me. I get to do what I love for a living. I'm well aware.
But your life is so fascinating.
Most
and
people
your opinion
don't.
is so fascinating.
But I can take that side of it and put it into a guy who's a high school teacher or works at CVS, or those people are just as interesting to me. And one of our favourite shows during lockdown was Superstore, which is actually a remake of a British show called Trolleyed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I interviewed who's the Asian guy from it?
Trolleyed or Superstore?
The Superstore here.
The Asian guy.
The Matteo. Matteo.
Oh, yeah.
We did a whole thing, and it was his story was fascinating.
Sorry, Matteo.
Because he was a costume designer, and he was like, that's all he's going to do, and then. His story's interesting.
Well, like Bianca Del Rio. Roy was a costume designer as well.
Watch that interview because we talked about you
watching yesterday.
Yeah.
And we just love that show. And I've said to Danny, because we're on our green cards now, and he's between acting jobs. I was like, get a job at Walmart. It'll be just like Superstore.
Yeah, they didn't want me.
It'll be so funny. You can tell me all the stories. Now, it's not happened yet because he's overqualified or underqualified.
The opposite to the Anna Faris podcast.
But I find all that sort of fascinating.
Anna Faris. Sorry, we're in America. Yeah, Anna.
But that's kind of my mum was the first in my family to go to university. All my dad's side of the family were all merchant seamen. Do you call it merchant seamen here? So like the Navy, but for money.
Fishermen.
No, it was like
sailors.
Trade. But it wasn't like the national navy. It was just for doing goods.
I mean, we say seamen here, but it's not what you're talking about.
They're all big fans of seamen on my dad's side of the family, and my mum's side of the family who are Irish bare knuckle boxers. So,
are you kidding?
What? Yeah, so I didn't. Have you not seen the picture of my granddad with his great granddad with his shirt off, doing that at the family house? Yeah.
No.
So I didn't inherit any of that. But my family were just ordinary. And so that's what
I wouldn't call that
but
ordinary.
all amazing, right?
Yeah.
But not posh, not industry, not
Big
fancy or
personalities,
connected.
big-
And so
I'm fascinated.
it's just much more interesting. The same with your family. Like Danny's granddad was the Lord Mayor of Wigan. Now Wigan is
Just the mayor.
Sorry, Mayor of Wigan.
What does that mean? Like,
It's a good
He
question.
put a traffic light on one street, and that was it.
His
Like-
dad was the MP for Wigan, which is the same as being the congressman or the Senate. No, be the same, the equivalent to Congress. wouldn't it?
He'd be like a congressman.
And was a big power in local politics where Danny grew up, but in a very working class town. So and his family's they're just like an ordinary nice family, but they've got these kind of extraordinary facets, and that I'm much more interested in that. Whereas
And my great grandfather, by the way, just to interject with your boxing story, was the Ajax guy that could bend a penny in his fingers.
yeah.
I don't know if you know him here.
this is so fascinating. No, but here's the thing: is like you've done interview after interview after interview, and it's like these are different elements that we're discovering.
You've peeled back my layers.
Peeling the onion.
Yeah.
But this is so important,
Who
especially
knew
for
all
our
it
audience.
took was branded vodka.
Well, no, because we have so
You
many.
haven't drunk nearly enough, by the way.
No, he's sipping. He's
Like-
being like, "Hello."
I've already ruined my career on the.
No. No, these are important conversations, and it's like the real conversations because it's where we come from. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, obviously we have a lot more to talk about when we come back. And we're back. All right, so we are going to discuss more about your past. We're going to talk about Jamie the movie. We're also going to talk about Doctor Who, but so I have to spill the secret. People are wondering, like, oh, why do you guys talk like you know each other? Mr. Dannie Pye and Mr. Tom MacRae are married. When did you get married?
4 and a little
Should
bit
we say it
years
at the
ago.
same time?
Oh.
1, 2, 3.
November
November the 24th.
They rehearsed that before, and they were like, let's say this.
2017.
Yes.
Oh, it's been a while then.
Oh, God, so long.
Yeah.
What we did, we had the press night for Jamie on November the 22nd. And we had this good idea, which was let's get married 2 days after press night.
All our family and friends will
everyone
be in
already
London.
be here. Right? It makes so much sense. Oh my God, it was the most
Who proposed to who?
exhausting week. I proposed to Danny.
Tom proposed to me.
Can you tell me? Was it just very casual?
That's a great story.
So we had this little special place in London called Roding Valley.
But give them the pre-story, which
So
is we
we-
went to a friend's wedding in the Caribbean, since divorced. And then Tom was like, oh, this is nice. I'm going to propose to Danny.
Yeah, because if someone else has something, then I want it too. And I wanted marriage. And
That's very interesting.
we had a lovely time at this wedding. And I was like, yeah,
Since
maybe it's,
divorced.
yeah, we've outlasted that.
52%. I'm sorry. So I used to officiate
sorry, Lucy.
at weddings, and every wedding I officiated at. So I don't do it anymore.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that was like your warm-up. So 52% of you won't survive this, but have a great day.
No.
And yeah, so we had this little special place in London. It's not particularly beautiful or famous,
But isn't that the best?
Yes.
and there's this little crappy bridge over this little clogged up bit of river, and I mean it's like one that's just like a slab of concrete with a kind of one rail that's like off a building site kind of thing, like no one cared. Or
It's
thought
called
about it.
Roding Valley.
It's called
if
Roding
you're
Valley. It's the
British.
least visited
Yes.
tube
It's
station.
the least visited
in
tube station.
London.
Didn't you have a picture with the
yes,
tube?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got I Heart Roding Valley t-shirts.
Yeah.
And so
Do we have it?
Oh.
It's I mean, when I do research, I'm telling you, I
on
do
my
research.
Instagram.
Yeah. Because you guys
flattering
did,
and
like, you went to
creepy.
different tubes.
On
Yes,
our
we did.
second date,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
On our
we
second
went to
date.
all these obscure tube stations to see what they were like.
That were quite far out, but have very
Turns out
interesting.
That's the
Pinner is
research
lovely.
we do here on The Rocks.
Dinner is lovely. Burnt oak is horrid.
Yeah, anyway.
Yes.
And we went to Roding Valley, and we just became a kind of like our little in-joke. So I tricked him to go
Yeah,
back
it was a
there
staple.
and took him to this funny little bridge. And I had a bottle of champagne stowed away that my
Yeah,
agent
whipped
had
out this
given
bottle of
me
Verve.
to propose with, and I even brought my grand's ring and forgot I had it and forgot to get it out, so it just sat in my pocket for the rest of
Right.
the day. And I remembered over lunch, oh, I had this thing, and it still had. Oh, you have to laugh when someone dies who you love. It was this lovely interwoven gold and white gold ring, and I'd like, can I have my nan's ring? And they'd like yanked it off her dead finger, and it kind of had like flecks of skin still in the thing, and I was trying to clean it out, but I was like, but it's my nan. I can't be precious.
That's
about
another
anything.
movie that you're going to write.
It's you have there's so much ridiculous stuff about dealing with funerals and all the rest of it. And
But she
you-
probably would
you
have
just
laughed,
have to-
right?
Oh yeah, she definitely would have done.
sure.
So I forgot the ring, but I proposed, and Danny said no.
Only because.
Wait a minute. I haven't found this in any interview that you've done, whatever. Why did you say no?
Right. Okay. Well, you have to understand. We were in Roding Valley.
Danny claims it was a kind of no way.
It was a no way.
No.
We're going to be the first couple to get divorced on the rocks.
Alexander's radio show.
It
Our
was
marriage
the first
is
time.
It was
on the rocks.
It was no. Yes, it is.
He's writing right now.
It was genuinely. I was just shocked. I wasn't expecting it.
That's the best time.
My nephew had been to stay in London the night before, like on the sofa bed.
Both of them had, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, it was not the kind of thing that you expect, like the day before you're proposed to, that you're like your teenage nephews who are in a band. One plays drums, one's on keys, like, you know, is kipping on your sofa. And then, you know, they're like, oh, Tom's like, let's go to Roding Valley. And I'm like, okay. And then
I'll put my shirt on.
Yeah, so then he whips out a ring, and then he's like, marry me. And I was just like, oh, no.
I remember you saying, no, I haven't done enough yet.
Yeah, because I was like, I don't...
Because all I've done is hold him back. I took that green card, I chained him down with it.
Whoa, we weren't even anywhere close to the green card when this came along. I was like, financially, what am I going to contribute to the marriage? And I thought I was being quite sensible and level-headed.
That comes from a beautiful place, then.
Yeah.
Because we're assuming... okay, so then...
It's still beautiful, though.
And
I
said
yes.
We went for lunch at our favourite restaurant, and I'd said to them, if we turn up, it's because he said yes. If we don't, just never speak to me again about it.
Oh, my God.
And we turned up, and they gave us the little cake that you get when you get engaged. You get free shit when you get engaged. It's great. We got quite a few free meals.
It's a cheesecake.
And we got
my best friend and I used to go to restaurants.
I propose
when we were a little less of funds, so we could get free.
Yeah. And
we've all said it's our birthday at Olive Garden when it's not.
Like, what's that?
I don't know.
No, we love Olive Garden. And this is what I mean. Like,
I'm enchanted with this too.
Olive Garden is one of my favorite places.
By the way, when are you going to
America.
use your unused gift card that I bought you for Christmas in 2019?
Oh yeah, it's on the fridge. We'll do it. Well, COVID. But so they gave us this little cheesecake, and it had pink edible glitter on it, and we had our cheesecake. And the next day, Danny shat pink glitter.
Yes, I shat
which I
glitter.
think is what every gay engagement should culminate with when you shit pink glitter.
It was weird. I
Is
thought
that
I
a
was.
quote that I could?
Yeah,
I thought I was dying.
Put it on the list. You can have that one.
Okay, but let's talk about the reality of being in this kind of couple. You have been part of Jamie. How did you guys meet? Was through Jamie?
Yes, I cast Danny in the original 2 workshops.
And can I just say as well, going back to
just like put all the rumors to rest.
What you were saying before, when Jamie went to the studio to record, like to listen to the recordings, I genuinely thought Tom and Dan were 2 students trying to put on a musical, and I thought, oh, this is sweet. This will never see the light of day.
Dan had seen Dan's band at least twice.
Yeah, I'd seen The Feeling like 3 times live.
A lot of actors will do new projects, and I'm like, okay, let's just record, let me get my
paycheck. And I didn't want to go in there with a preconceived opinion of who anyone was and judge anyone differently to what they brought to the table. Like, I don't like to Google people before we work together. Like, you know.
Honey, I Google everybody.
I mean, unless you're Meryl,
clearly,
it's like, you know,
even my Uber. And didn't Glenn Close like come to your house? Or
she did. Yes, she did once. Yeah. Was that
Googleable? And she may
did
again.
You tell her to back out of Sunset Boulevard.
She no. Glenn's lovely.
No, I know she's lovely.
But the what were you saying before? Because I was going to say something on that.
That you were students.
The audition. The audition was. So I was reading for Jamie. And it was me, Johnny, Dan, and Alistair Coomer, the casting director, now at the National. But there was then at the Donmar, so very legit. And Danny came in, and he sat opposite me and did the bully's lines. And then
you played the bully,
and I was playing Jamie for the audition.
Passable.
And then he at one point
I would cast him too.
I'm going to take my hands off this. He put the script down and went up to me and did this and did the whole line like this and finished. And walked out the door, and there's a kind of pause, and Alistair, the casting director, looked at me and said, have you got a hard-on as well? And then we cast him.
But to be honest, like, when I first met Tom, I really did think I didn't like him at all. No. I was like, who is this student shouting
My 8.5-year relationship was from somebody that we didn't get along so much that we couldn't even be scheduled on the same day to work, honestly.
I mean, it was like... Well, honestly, though, when I met Tom, I really didn't like him. I thought he did the thing. He did this classic thing in an audition and it was I was reading, and I was in the moment.
And you didn't know that he was new to musical theater.
I didn't. I thought he was a student. And it was like normally when you read a script, you'll get to the end and then you'll do notes and it'll be like, I'm sorry, could you said the line wrong here? Could you do the line as it's written? Like, you know.
Well, that's a lot, because usually now they'll be like, thank you.
Yeah. I know, but for theatre, they like to direct, because the directors are
actually, normally they want to get you out the door, but the fact
exactly
that we were doing the notes bit was because you were doing well. And if you'd realised it was kind of a compliment to you.
You can dress that up however you want to.
I still have the casting notes page from Danny's audition.
Oh my God, that's so sweet.
In London, and I used to write down, because we asked them to sing a song, and I'd write down just a couple of...
What song did...
Well, I'll tell you. I'd write down a couple of adjectives about their
performance.
performance.
I sang too.
I keep interrupting because I'm so excited.
I'd write down a few adjectives about the performance, and then the name of the song that they sang. And I found Danny's about 2 years after we were dating in a pile of papers, and I'd written down... Cold, scary, that's amore, because that was the song that he did.
And then you asked me to sing
terrifying.
Another one.
Yeah. Well, we wanted people
and
to
sing. And I sang Down by Jay
theatres.
Sean, which, by the way, was playing in Trader Joe's this morning. Did you hear it?
It wasn't as good as your version.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Obviously, we've stepped into an intimate. So how did that evolve into, like, going on a date and then...
So after I...
Because you were in the
got
show.
over wanting to punch
you
him in
got
the face.
cast.
Yeah, I got cast, which to my surprise, I said to my agent, I was like, "Oh, tell them no," and my agent was like, "No, I really think you should say yes to this."
Why no?
Because I was like, "Oh, the writer gave me this like weird vibe, and I don't like."
Is that 100% true?
Yeah, I was like,
"It's Danny % true."
No, whoa, what is that supposed to mean?
Anyway, okay.
No, what is that supposed to mean?
We're on the radio. Come on.
All right, okay. So I'd said I got a weird vibe from the writer. I was like, and I was doing another play at the time where I was playing an Irish choir boy with special needs, and that was taking up my whole life.
But that's kind of okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was great in it.
It was hot.
I was.
I love these two.
I was like, I'm just busy, and then it was like this week thing, and then he was like, no, I really think you should do this, like I really, and so I was like, oh right, okay, tell them fine, I'll move some stuff around with rehearsals. So I did it, and you were there, and I was like, he was like, oh, I'm Tom the writer, and I was like, and then as the week went on, like my iceberg was thawing ever so slightly.
I thought Danny was straight as well, because he wasn't wearing that tracksuit when I met him.
He's passable.
He was passing big time.
I think I did rock up on the first day in like a full Adidas like kind of tracksuit.
Yeah, and he also ate a cup noodle for lunch, which I had not.
What's a cup noodle?
A cup noodle. I was going to say pot noodle, which is, I thought cup noodle was the American version. It's like a ramen but really kind of cheap. And
there's nothing wrong with them. They're fine. But anyway, I was poor, and not anymore. Thanks, babe. And what am I talking about? It's the vodka. Yes. Every day, Tom would, in the green room, on our lunch break, come and sit closer and closer to me. And
it was a classic Me Too romance.
Yes, this is what happens when a Me Too works out. And
you're giving hope to a lot of different crowd out there. But there was that moment that it was like love, because obviously you guys are married. You guys have a long-lasting relationship.
I did a slut drop, and you were watching. Remember?
Yes.
I don't know what that is, but I don't know.
There was a line in the song before it got changed.
Oh God, there wasn't there? Miss Hedge did the slut drop.
No, it was before it was.
Do you know a slut drop?
I don't know if we should.
It's
talk
a
about
dance
this.
move.
Yeah, so they would
okay,
like
we can talk about it.
You would drop drop. For those watching listening on the radio, I'm dropping.
He's dropping.
They're gonna watch the video real fast.
Yeah.
And the girls got to do it, and I felt jealous that I wasn't doing it. And so there was one point where I thought no one was watching me, and the line was going to do a slut drop in a little crop top.
I forgot about that.
And well, luckily for you, I haven't. So I was like, gonna do a slut, and I was like, slut drop, like, and I like kind of looked at, and Tom was just watching me. And then I think that was it, wasn't it? That lunchtime you came and sat next to me in the green room, and you were talking about bad grinder dates, and I was like, well, we've all been there. And then it just unfurled.
So let me ask you, as a creative, we see a lot of actors come in and out. What was the spark, and what made you kind of pursue this?
I don't know. I mean, it I guess I've never really tried to unpick that. I guess you can't. It just happened. I mean, it sounds really kind of lazy, but it did. It just happened.
All right, so let's get into it. Now we're past the romance. Danny, I want you to be honest. Dating, Tom, you guys have had to go to so many premieres, red carpets, opening. Jamie has now taken over a lot of Tom's life.
Yes.
Not for the first few years. I was just a jobbing TV writer when we got together. All the kind of the particularly glamorous things came along quite a lot later.
Yes.
Has Jamie, do you feel, overtaken your life as an actor?
Do you feel resentful towards Jamie?
Why are you... I didn't use that word. And here's the point of this question is to how a couple in entertainment can work through this. Yeah.
No. I enjoy the success of the show, and I enjoy that it's bringing my husband success. But there are times where I've had to they've said you can't walk down the red carpet with him, and it's been
it does happen. It does happen.
It's been very much but we're married, and this is my husband, and they're like no. And then you get corralled like cattle with down, and they push you down, and it's well, hang on, I was in the film. Why are you pushing me down the cart? I was in the film.
I mean, it's a hard job being a PR at a red carpet event, and I've seen them do it. And
100%, and it must be difficult on you too, because you understand what they're going for, and
there's only so much time and attention for everything. But I do want Danny to be included. When we did the red carpet at Sheffield for the second premiere in the UK, where we went back to where it all began and did it the premiere at the theatre where it all began, and I'd lost him on the red carpet in London, which was a huge affair, and me and Dan and Johnny did spend an hour doing press on the red carpet before we went in. But when we went in Sheffield, where we had a bunch of our friends, I said to Danny, don't let them separate you from me. No matter what happens, make sure, because I'll do the press stuff, but I'm going to come back to you. Don't let them push you into the theatre. And I was doing some press, and out of the corner of my ear, I heard, Tom said, well, I'm not to be separated from him, and I'm going to stand here. And I look, and Danny was holding his own. Because the PR were lovely. They're trying to organise a thing, and they don't know who everyone is. They're doing their job. And if you're kind of polite and firm and make it clear, then you can work around it. But it's learning how to do that, because no one teaches you that. I mean, even if you were trained, I mean, you didn't get how to do a red carpet lessons at drama school, did you?
No,
so there's a whole etiquette, and it's all new to me. This has been my first time doing it, and you work out, okay, this is how you give attention to the fans at the thing. And I'm so flattered that anyone would want to have my autograph, but you can get sucked into that, and then you should be doing the press because you're trying to sell a show, and it looks like you're at a party, but really it's a pretend party that's been put on for the cameras to sell tickets.
It's not
to
as fun.
And you have to treat it as work, and then you have
an
after
party. The pictures look great, and you're wearing something fabulous, and there's free champagne, which helps. But it's very regimented and very orchestrated.
Yeah, it's a professional occasion, and then you close the doors and go off and have a boogie.
What keys do you have on maintaining a healthy relationship while in this kind of spotlight?
I mean, I'm not really in any kind of spotlight. I have little moments, and now Jamie's finished at the Armandson, so that's all gone away now for a while.
That also has to have a weird energy. It's okay, and now it's okay, well, I guess I'm here on my own. Oh, this is a question. We have 3 pages of questions. We got through this little small section. Also, there's a very different way, I think, that writers are treated here in the U.S. We're like, oh, they wrote this. The focus is on the actors and the directors and this.
Not in theatre, which is lovely.
Can you talk about this? Because I was there for opening night, and you were very lauded. But talk about how writers are treated differently in the UK than here.
I don't know if there's any difference between UK and US. The difference is theatre versus TV and film. If you're a showrunner, which, fingers crossed, I'm going to be this year, then that's a different thing, because then you're...
But we can't talk about it, can we?
I wish I could. I only wish I could. But it's a musical, and it's got some great songs. And it would be for TV, episodically. Me and Dan, and I'd showrun it, and we've got a great director and a great team, but it's not literally selling it at the moment. But if you're if you're a theatre writer, then you know you get your name in big letters in flashing lights outside the theatre, and the director is kind of pushed second. So when Dan and I, when we realised that Johnny, our best friend, was going to be kind of left out of that, we credited him as from an idea by Jonathan Butterall and cut him into our slice of the pie, so that we were legally the three co-authors of the project, because that was the only way of fairly representing. It was his idea. He put it all together. He made it happen.
This doesn't happen.
And then when we did the film, and you get that a movie by, Johnny said it's the three of us. So we have above the title a film by Jonathan Butterall, Tom MacRae, and Dan Gillespie Sells. And I think I may be, my agent did say this, the only writer who ever got the possessorial title, I think it's called, on a film, because it's our thing. So the trick is, if you want to be treated well as a writer, is create the IP from scratch, have a hit stage show, and then take it out and own a chunk of it. It's quite hard to do that, and I don't know if I'll ever do it again. But actors are there to sell a show. It's kind of like, I mean, it's nice doing something like this because it feels like a proper conversation. But I find it really hard to watch chat shows now, because I know the actors are just there because the PR, it's in their contract. They have to be there.
And
even
you've
if they
had
don't
to
want
do
to be
too.
there.
I've watched, and you're right. You're asked the same kind of 5 questions over and over. And it's not delving into your actual creative process, the actual, mission of your project. It has to be frustrating.
You're selling tickets, and if you sell tickets, then people see your show, and if people see your show, then your show has a life. It's all about the show. When I see on the side of a bus or on a poster, everybody's talking about Jamie, for me that might as well say Tom MacRae, Tom MacRae, Tom MacRae. I know to the world it doesn't, but to me that's all that matters. I see everything I need to see of myself in that.
We were in West Hollywood. It was there all...
I love it. And the actual West Hollywood ones in the streets even had mine and Dan's name on the poster, which doesn't normally happen, so we had some pictures by the poster. But it's... I don't need... I watched this show on a Sunday, the last show, and I was standing there, and huge standing ovation, and at one point I did just look round to take in the audience.
Well, there was a standing ovation when I was there, opening night.
That was for you.
When... God, he's so quick. When he's my boy.
Oh yeah, that's when
that was
they
the
actually
first of many.
Stopped the show to honour Melissa playing Margaret so beautifully, and that show, isn't she wonderful?
Yeah, she's great.
But so I see like all these people standing up and cheering, and none of them know that I'm the guy who wrote all the words that they loved.
That has to be frustrating.
No, it's not frustrating at all. It's great because I don't have any hassle. I mean, I did.
You don't have the ego.
A couple of people recognised me and wanted a picture. That's no, my ego is enough that I'm like, yeah, I'll sign a thing and have a picture. How wonderful that you'd want that. That's a lovely ego boost. But everyone there was loving what I did, and then I get to just walk out without any hassle and go home. If I'd been on the stage, it'd be a whole palaver. So, do you say palaver here? That feels very British.
Nope.
It'd be a whole 2 and 8.
What's a palaver?
Kerfuffle.
A kerfuffle, yeah.
Kerfuffle.
Even the only person that says kerfuffle is Judge Judy.
Does she?
Yeah. Do you want to get into directing then?
Yes. Yeah,
I wanted to hear that.
We've got 2 things lined up this year. One of them, if it goes, it'd be me and Johnny doing it together.
Stage or film?
TV would be the first thing, to hopefully then get to do a film that I've written, which I'd like to do.
And here's the thing: what you've done, your whole career is like, since I haven't done it, I'm not going to let that restrict me.
Well, I've never done any of it. I'm just making all of it up.
You're doing it. So I have to know, at home, the 2 of you, are you reading his drafts? Is he asking you
Every
for
single one,
opinions?
yeah.
Oh, really?
I mean, not necessarily opinions. I give them unsolicitedly.
But you get to see the...
Yes.
It's difficult to ask someone who you know loves you, whether it's a friend or a Danny or family, so what did you think? Because they're going to say they loved it, right? So, well...
No,
not at all.
So I'd never ask...
We're going to be the most honest people you've ever had.
I never say, what do you think? Because the answer to that suggests that I want you to say it's great, but I'm very happy to say nothing and then hear what the feedback is.
I've given a couple of notes that have gone into a script.
You want to share her?
I can't. It's for the...
Tom, as a partner, do you feel the pressure to write a role for Danny?
I've written him a few.
He's Joel Cohen. I'm Francis McDormand.
As long as I'm never asked to do a self-tape, then I'm happy. That's my one rule, is no self-tapes. I hate doing self-tapes with actors, as in filming it and doing the feed lines. I hate it so much.
It just doesn't work. And I fear that this is the new generation of TikTokers and all that. It doesn't capture what an actual performer is.
No. No, I hate it.
Tom, are you writing a new musical?
Yes. I am writing
Is it a
I've
theater?
got 6 on the go at the moment.
6 musicals?
Yeah, all the different stages. What I've got 2, potentially 3 TV shows, which are musicals. One of which we've written a lot of songs for and scripts for. A potential film, and then a new thing I'm starting very soon, which is going to be. The plan is to develop it as a stage show and a film at the same time, which is what we did kind of accidentally with Jamie, but to do it deliberately, because it's great to test out. Not that the stage is just there to test out for film.
But they're 2 totally different products.
They are, and one of the things with Jamie that I regret is when I wrote the stage show, I didn't know it was going to be a film, and if I had known it, I would have written it in a way that would have given me more wriggle room on screen to do things differently, but keep the same songs. So I want to, with the new project, I want to write the songs and the stage show in a way where the songs are versatile enough that I can slightly shift the context a lot more for the screen, because screen is so different. So like in the Jamie movie, when Hugo does the big new song, This Was Me, which isn't in the stage show, replaces a song in the stage show. And I watch the film and I think, I just want to stay with Hugo now and find out more about him. But we couldn't because
we did get questions about
because
that.
We've got these songs coming up, which the fans will want, and they pull it back to Jamie, and you're kind of locked into, you change the show to a point, but you can't change it to the extent that it's not your show anymore, because then why would it be Jamie? It should just be a new thing. And I thought I could have made choices in the stage show that would have given me more wiggle room, more leeway to make the film have a slightly different path and a different track, but still hit the same musical beats. So with the new thing, I'm going to write it. I think I might literally write 10 pages of the stage show and 10 pages of the movie and then 10 pages of the stage show, and keep going back and forward to make sure that I can make the film be the best film it can be and the stage show the best stage show it can be. I haven't started writing it yet, so that might all just be pie in the sky. Does that work as an American expression?
I'm not sure about that.
Dannie Pye in the sky.
Dannie Pye in the sky. But that's my plan, is to make it so that the two can coexist deliberately from the start.
But since you've been working on Jamie for like almost a decade, it evolved, so maybe the movie version should be different.
Oh, no, that's what I mean. So the movie version will have to be different because movies are different from stage. So if you know, in a film you're going to have, 5-6 times the characters that you have on stage. Well, maybe start thinking about who those characters are going to be, even though you don't meet them in the stage show, so that there's space for them to sit naturally in the narrative. So it's that kind of, I'm going to go with my eyes a lot more open than I did with Jamie.
And you get to, like, in film as well, you get to see characters' house. Like, really, truly see, you get to see characters' house.
Every room, every cupboard, a closet.
Like, everything. Like, in the theatre,
that kitchen in Jamie, I've spent all my mornings in that kitchen with my own mom, It was just so
The kitchens
real.
are a wonderfard space. Everything good happens in a kitchen.
But,
true.
God, we have so many questions. We have to end. We're already done. Can you imagine? You guys have to come back.
Okay.
There's just like so many.
Jamie Part 2.
Could ruin my career all over again.
No. Okay. How about this? You are in the movie, actually.
Yes, we both are. Danny's.
Yes.
He's proper featured. I'm just a silly cameo.
Tell us.
It was the first shot of the first day, filming in a little street in Sheffield that we were pretending was a street in London. That was literally.
Which Sheffield is the actual city?
Is the actual city where it's set, where we opened, and this street was just opposite the theatre where we'd opened Jamie all those years before.
That's amazing.
And Dan, not Danny, but Dan, my professional husband, we were drag nuns in the 80s flashback, and it was Max's first day, Richard D. Grant's first day. John MacRae, who was the original West End Jamie, had come in to play young Richard D. Grant. It was his first day as well. And Dan and I did our drag cameos, and behind us were Dan's mum and my dad as the protesters. And my dad was dressed as a kind of old gay rights protester, and he waved his hat in the air and went, "Gay rights, gay rights."
So watch that.
Oh, you got the clip?
No.
I was going to bring it up. It's like, wow, that is research.
If I played 2 seconds of it, you guys would like ask me to pay for it.
Yeah.
But that's beautiful. So watch that movie.
Honestly, though, people have because I think people see me and you together so much, they think that I'm Dan.
Yes, people do get confused.
And people go, I love your songs. And then it's got to the point where I just go, yes, thanks.
And I met Dan. Dan's amazing.
Yeah.
He's a lot of fun.
But I now just take credit for Dan's work because people think I'm him. Because it's like Tom and Danny.
Yes.
And they're like, I love your songs. And I'm like, yeah, they're great, aren't they?
Do you want to squeeze another question in?
No, we have the questions I have are pretty deep.
I do need
they're
a
from
wee,
your fans.
to be fair. Like,
Okay,
can I say that
let's
on the
end on
air?
this. What are the top terms that you wish we were still using here in the U.S.?
Still using, or don't yet know.
Or yeah.
Well, I mean, it's an awful word, but I've done my best to bring it to North America, which is minga, which is
I've never even heard that.
it's the end of Act 1 of Jamie in the stage show. In the film, I changed it to freak show, but in the stage show in America and everywhere else, the bullies turn up to berate Jamie, and they call him a minga, which is an ugly. It means an unattractive woman in slang, British slang. But it's Jamie's kind of the chink in his armor, because he's very confident in many ways, but he's not confident yet as a drag queen. And so Dean and the guys go and they shout minga, minga, and it's kind of an awful word, but there's kind of something visceral and fabulous about it as well. So maybe that could take off. I think Austin Powers gave America shag, which I think to have a shag, and Madonna introduced wanker. I remember that happening.
Yes.
And so and also
Madonna's British now.
also bollocks is a good one.
Bellend.
I wish people would. What are some of your terms? I wish people would use.
Bellend
bollocks.
is a good one.
Bellend.
No, I don't even know what that means.
The
It's
tip
your-
of a penis.
Yeah, you're the fireman's
A
helmet.
bell end.
No, no,
No,
not bell end.
Oh,
Bellend.
Bellend.
All one word.
bell end.
Bellend. Like Belinda Carlisle.
Bellend. It's my drag queen name.
But
It's
that
also-
doesn't have the same like. It's like, hey, you're a dick.
Yeah. No, but like,
Bellend.
yeah. Oh
No,
my
no, no,
God.
no, no,
Oh,
no,
he's
no, no.
such
Is it a fancy
bellend.
dick?
He's such a you
No.
fucking bellend.
Oh, you're such a
You
bellend.
bellend.
Don't
It's
be a
too much work.
bellend.
Nah,
Okay,
it's
that
just
and Craig and Graham.
not Craig.
Not Craig and Graham.
It's like Don,
No, it's Craig and Graham. It's
French and Saunders. Is it like
yeah,
that?
it's Craig and Graham.
Yeah.
Please and
That's how you
thank you.
pronounce Craig properly. It's Craig,
So you go Craigslist. It's Craigslist.
Craigslist.
Which doesn't exist here.
Okay,
doesn't it?
and it's
They did away with it.
Oh,
Graham
where am I gonna get
Graham
my hookers
Norton
from now?
and it's
Yeah, Graham Norton is one of my heroes.
Graham.
Graham.
Graham Norton.
Graham.
Graham Norton.
It's like a graham cracker.
no,
but
it's
it's
a Graham
Graham.
cracker.
I'd like
Golden Grahams.
yeah.
The
I
cereal.
will tell you, Graham will do whatever you call him.
Okay, I believe you.
Anyway, honestly, we have so many other questions about the play and the movie and your own personal life and Doctor Who. I just can't believe it's so late.
I know, but big thank you for having us on,
Thank
and
you,
also
On
thank
the
you because
Rocks.
like he
And
fries
thank
us
you,
with
NEFT
alcohol.
Vodka.
Can we do like a part 2?
Yeah, sure.
Right. All right. Tell everybody where you want them to find you and follow you.
I am on Insta, Tom MacRae, TomMacWriter, and also on Twitter, Tom MacRae.
And I am Dannie Pye at Instagram at Dannie Pye. That's Danny with an IE and Pye with a Y. And also at Twitter, the same.
He has a
I
good
have
voice
no
for
imagination.
like NPR, but he has a good voice for this.
It's very
So
very
casting
dulcet
agents,
tones.
he's here.
He's got a lovely
Yeah.
timbre.
Tomb.
Well, that's our episode. We still have more. We will answer your questions on part 2. It's always a grab bag of fun here and On the Rocks. A big thank you to our fabulous guest, my engineer Tony Sweet, also owner of UBN. Our media clip editor Alexis Mendez. Please share. I said share. Subscribe so we can continue to bring this to you for free. Coming up, we have controversial reality TV and pop culture star Courtney Stoddard. It's going to be very interesting. Also, we have CW's All-American Homecoming playing the first black non-binary character on the network. Royal Ivy King is coming. And then we have the master of the great American songbook, Michael Feinstein. He's also Liza Minnelli's best friend. She might call in, but I'm not promising. All right. Until next week, stay sexy, stay tipsy. Boop, boop. This has been another episode of On the Rocks. Tweet me and slide into my DMs on Twitter and Instagram at On the Rocks On Air. Find everything On the Rocks for free at OnTheRocksRadioshow.com. Subscribe, like, review, and share. Until next week, stay fabulous.